Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Lisa, and as always, I'm here to help you on your journey to mastering English. Whether you're a beginner or you've been learning for a while, this is the place to boost your confidence and skills. Today's topic is something I know many of you struggle with, something that's holding you back from fluency. If you've ever felt stuck or wondered why you're not making the progress you want, this is the episode for you. And, of course, I'm not alone. Joining me is my amazing co-host, Tommy. Hi, Tommy. How are you doing today?
Hi, Lisa. I'm doing great. Thanks. And hello to all our listeners. I'm so excited about today's topic because I know it's something that really holds a lot of people back. But don't worry, we're going to break it down and give you practical tips to overcome it. So stick with us, because by the end of this episode, you'll feel more confident in taking your fluency to the next level.
That's right, Tommy. And remember, if you enjoy this podcast, don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss any of our upcoming episodes. All right. So let's start by talking about what fluency actually means and why so many people feel stuck on their journey to becoming fluent. Tommy, from your experience, what do most students think fluency is?
Great question, Lisa. Many students believe fluency is about speaking perfect English without any pauses, hesitations, or mistakes. But that's not quite true. Fluency is more about being able to express yourself clearly and naturally, even if you make a few mistakes along the way.
Exactly. And one of the biggest misconceptions is that you have to learn everything. Every word, every grammar rule, every pronunciation detail before you can be fluent.
That's simply not the case.
What do you think about that?
I completely agree. I've seen students spend so much time trying to memorize long vocabulary lists or stressing over grammar, but they still don't feel confident when it's time to speak. And you know why? Because fluency isn't about knowing everything. It's about using what you know effectively.
Yes, and that's where the real struggle comes in. So many students spend their time on things like studying alone, reading textbooks, or passively watching videos. But when it comes time to actually speak, they freeze. And there's one main reason for that. Tommy, want to reveal what it is?
Absolutely. The biggest thing holding most people back from fear of making mistakes, fear of sounding silly, fear of being judged. And honestly, Lisa, I think this fear holds back more students than anything else.
Absolutely. And that's why we're dedicating this episode to helping you understand this fear, where it comes from, and most importantly, how to overcome it. So if you've ever felt afraid to speak English, you're not alone, and we're here to help. Let's dive into it now that we've set the stage. Let's talk about this major hurdle, fear of making mistakes. Tommy, why do you think this fear is so common among English language learners?
You know, Lisa, I think it's because most people want to be perfect. They don't want to sound silly or say the wrong thing, especially when speaking with native speakers. It's like they feel pressure to perform perfectly, and that pressure can be paralyzing.
Exactly. And that fear often leads to self-doubt. You start questioning yourself. What if I say the wrong word? What if my grammar is wrong? What if people laugh at me? These thoughts can make it seem safer not to speak at all. But of course, that only makes the problem worse.
Yeah, it's like being stuck in a cycle. The less you speak, the less confident you feel, and the more you avoid speaking. I've even heard students say things like, "I'll practice speaking when my English is better." But how can your English get better if you don't practice speaking?
That's such a good point, Tommy. I've also noticed that this fear often starts in school where mistakes are sometimes punished or corrected too harshly. Students get used to believing that mistakes are bad, and that mentality follows them into adulthood.
Right. And it doesn't help that social media or online forums can sometimes make people even more nervous. If someone corrects your mistake publicly, it feels embarrassing. But here's the thing. Mistakes are a natural part of learning. Even native speakers make them.
Exactly. And let's not forget, mistakes are how you grow. When you make a mistake, you give yourself an opportunity to learn something new. But if fear keeps you silent, you rob yourself of that opportunity. Tommy, do you have any stories or examples of students you've worked with who overcame this fear?
Oh, absolutely. I remember one student who was so afraid to speak because she thought her pronunciation wasn't good enough. She avoided conversations for years, but when she finally started practicing, she realized that people were much more interested in what she said than how she sounded. Once she let go of that fear, her confidence soared, and so did her fluency. It wasn't overnight, of course, but it was such a transformation.
I love that story. It's such a good reminder that progress is possible when you face your fears. And speaking of progress, let's share some practical tips to help you overcome this fear and start speaking with confidence. Ready, Tommy?
Absolutely. Let's give our listeners some tools they can use right away. Now that we understand how fear can stop you from speaking fluently, let's focus on how to overcome it.
Tommy, what's one of the first steps students can take to address this fear of making mistakes?
The first step is to change your mindset. Remember, mistakes aren't failures. They're learning opportunities. Instead of seeing them as something bad, see them as stepping stones to fluency. Every time you make a mistake, you're actually learning something new.
Absolutely. And a great way to embrace this mindset is to set small, realistic goals. For example, instead of saying, I need to speak perfect English, try saying, I'm going to practice speaking for 5 minutes every day, no matter how many mistakes I make. Tommy, do you think starting small like this can make a difference?
Absolutely, Lisa. Starting small helps build confidence without feeling overwhelmed. And along with setting small goals, I always recommend that students create a safe space for practice. That could be practicing with a trusted friend, recording yourself speaking, or even talking to yourself in front of a mirror. These low-pressure activities can really help.
That's such a good point. And speaking of recording yourself, that's an incredibly powerful tool. When you record yourself, you can listen back, notice areas for improvement, and track your progress over time. Plus, it's just you and your voice. No fear of being judged by others.
Exactly. Another tip I love to share is to find a language partner or join a conversation group. These can be online or in person. The key is to practice with someone who is encouraging and supportive.
Tommy, do you have any favorite platforms for finding language partners?
Yes, there are some great ones out there. Apps like HelloTalk, Tandem, or even joining English-speaking Facebook groups can connect you with people who want to practice just like you.
The best part? They're often learners too, so they understand your fears and won't judge you.
And here's another tip. Focus on communication, not perfection. Remember, the goal of speaking isn't to be grammatically perfect. It's to get your message across. Most native speakers aren't even thinking about your grammar. They're listening to what you're trying to say.
That's so true, Tommy. I think learners sometimes forget that even native speakers make mistakes all the time. It's normal. So instead of worrying about grammar, try to relax and focus on the flow of the conversation.
Right. And if you're still feeling nervous, one of my favorite strategies is to prepare beforehand. For example, if you know you're going to have a conversation in English, think about the topics you'll be discussing and practice some key phrases beforehand. That preparation can make a huge difference.
Such a helpful tip. And let's not forget the power of positive reinforcement. Reward yourself for your efforts, no matter how small they are. Maybe you tried speaking in a meeting or participated in a short conversation online. Celebrate those successes. Tommy, do you have any final tips for our listeners?
One more. Be patient with yourself. Fluency takes time, and everyone's journey is different. Instead of comparing yourself to others, focus on your own progress. Remember, every word you speak, every mistake you make is a step forward.
Perfectly said, Tommy. So to summarize, change your mindset, start small, practice in safe spaces, focus on communication, and celebrate your progress. If you follow these steps, you'll be well on your way to overcoming your fear of mistakes and becoming fluent in English.
Absolutely. And remember, everyone listening, You got this. Mistakes aren't the end of the world. They're just the beginning of learning something new.
Now we'll wrap up with some final thoughts and some inspiration for you to take with you. We've covered a lot today, but before we go, we want to leave you with some inspiration. Tommy, what's one final thought you want to share with our listeners about overcoming their fear and achieving fluency?
I would say this. Fluency isn't about perfection, it's about connection. Think about why you're learning English in the first place. Maybe it's to travel, make new friends, or advance in your career. Whatever your reason, remember that every step you take, even the small ones, brings you closer to your goal.
That's beautiful, Tommy. And I would add this. Learning a language is a journey, not a race. It's okay to stumble. It's okay to take your time. And it's okay to laugh at your mistakes. Every great speaker started right where you are now, with doubts, fears, and a desire to improve.
Exactly. And you're not alone. Millions of people around the world are on the same journey. The key is to keep going. Don't let fear stop you from speaking, from trying, or from growing.
Well said, Tommy. So to everyone listening, take that first step, no matter how small. Speak up in a meeting, say hello to someone in English, or even practice by yourself. Each time you try, you are proving to yourself that you can do it, and we believe in you. Remember, fluency isn't something you wait for, it's something you work toward, one conversation, one sentence, and one word at a time.
Thank you for joining us today. We hope you found this episode helpful and inspiring. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the podcast and share it with anyone who might need a little extra motivation on their English learning journey. And don't forget to leave us a comment or question. We'd love to hear about your experiences and how you're overcoming your fear of mistakes. Until next time, keep practicing and keep growing.
Take care, everyone, and remember, you've got this. Bye, everyone. Keep speaking and keep shining. Thanks for watching.